Today, I think people need to look at, just like the keynote speaker identified, some of the other tools outside of the typical will and trust to tie the estate together and make the succession plan work on the farm. Buy-sell agreements was mentioned this morning, and I think leases are also another component of that. Because you can lock up for a time period the access to the properties or the facilities, and you may also be able to include things like options to buy or options to purchase on those key facilities or land. So I think they need to be looked at as a way to spell out the thoughts, and they may not have as much influence by a third party or a demented person and their child, because they're already signed by two people and both people have to change them, unlike a will or a trust. So I think they need to, they need to have a good meeting with their accountant and understand their income, their ability to bring somebody in if that's where they want to go. Even if they're not going to bring somebody in as a successor, they still need to be looking at what they're giving their accountant or their lender so they can understand their balance sheet and how much value they really have in their estate. Because as you heard today, a lot of planning can be done about taxes, planning can be done about Medicaid, and all of that depends on how much you have and where it's at and how it's titled. So I think it's important to understand exactly what it is you own, how you own it, and make sure then from there that you work through every stage of the asset to make sure that you can identify the transfer plan. If you own property with a husband and wife, there's an identified transfer plan there. If you have assets in a business or a corporation or an LLC, you need to make sure that your buy-sell agreement's in place and you have identified how that transfer plan is going to work. So I think those understanding the values and the numbers and the ownership of what you have is a starting point, and then make sure that you continuously review where that's at, and if you have agreements, review to make sure they're current, and ask the questions to understand what happens. And so in every scenario what's going to happen, and you can better structure your stuff to do what you want.
I've got 4 kids, and at this point they've all gotten into a different career track, and I'm hoping to farm a few more years, a few grandchildren coming along the way. Looking at the options of maybe there will be a skip generation. Hopefully, maybe the grandchildren come along, and I'll know the procedure, what to take for that situation, as long as I stay healthy enough to transition to that point. But I've got to actually be prepared of what's going to happen if that doesn't get accomplished, if we can't get to that skip generation. There's a whole lot of information gathered from this conference. I'm glad they gave us a notebook that we can reference back to, because it's almost could be information overload. I mean, there are so many different tax implications that could, one wrong decision, and that could derail your plans.
Last year with the regional workshops, we wanted to see how much interest there was out there, and most of the feedback was our members, the farmers, wanted more in-depth coverage of issues, and they wanted to spend more time doing it. So we changed it to an all-day thing with 11 speakers instead of 2, and covering a lot more topics. Well, first of all of them want to deal with this issue at some point. Some are more reluctant than others, some are way ahead in working on it. So the first issue they turn to Farm Bureau for is helping them do that. So some of them want to come to a seminar for the purpose because they can drag another family member along that doesn't usually doesn't want to talk about it. So for some, it's a way to get their relative there so they can talk about this issue. There's a lot of other farmers that don't know a good attorney to help them through this issue. So this is a chance for them to learn something, so after they've learned it, they can go back, talk to an attorney and go, okay, what this attorney is saying makes sense to me based on what I heard from the experts that Farm Bureau brought in. So both of those are goals of the program. The goal is to develop a statewide list of good attorneys that hopefully we'll also even have some references from other farmers that can vouch for an attorney and so forth, because it's hard to really know whether you like an attorney or not until you've actually worked with them. If we get some people that say, I couldn't make it to the conference, can we get the materials? That's something we need to consider. We'd have to talk with the attorneys and see if we can do that, but that's a good option. Of course we can hook up the farmers with attorneys in their areas, but then we're also going to spend a short bit of time in the near future figuring out what do we do next year. Do our members want us to throw the same kind of conference again? Is once every few years enough? Is it necessary at all, or do we go back to regional conferences? So I would really recommend to our members that they give input to us directly, or to their regional rep, or through their county, or to their board member.